Struck by Davy Cooper. Back with Wilkins. Absolutely magnificent from Ray Wilkins. Well with the header, but it's Durant again. The last chance perhaps for Rangers. The chance is on for goal. Jock makes it 2-apiece. Johnston, and he scored.
Against Cantona, nicely left there by Haitley, and here's the break on. It's Ian Durant, through to Haitley. McCoist on the far side. Gary Speed is racing back to provide the cover. Here's Ali McCoist. Oh, he's done it! Ali McCoist for Rangers.
Here's Gascoigne now. Can he produce some magic? Still it's Gascoigne. Oh yes! A tremendous goal by Gascoigne. It's been very evenly balanced. Here's Gascoigne now, pushing forward. Showing great determination. Oh, he's done it again.
There's a slip by O'Neill, and Laudrup to win. Rangers look for a goal and get one in the 8th minute from Brian Laudrup. And Celtic's wall is 5 strong, but Alberts gets it through. The hammer has torn Celtic apart.
It's Barry Ferguson. Oh yes! The captain shows the way. Here now is Neil McCann. Is there going to be a twist in the tail? Lovenkrands! Yes, there is! Peter Lovenkrands! It had to be him! He has surely won the Scottish Cup!
Like this, here's Davis, put in by Darshville. Davis! Darshville! They've nicked it! Away from home! Manchester, brace yourself. Rangers are coming!
Bit of stoppage time. Kevin Thompson's corner. It's Bagheera! Borat stops it. Boyd! Edu has put it in! Morris Edu! Right at the end!
There's no doubt Vice has made an impact since he has come onto the park. Jelavic is it back. It's Jelavic for Rangers! It's gone in!
Jelavic onto Davis, and Lafferty's in already. He scored inside the first minute. Luco, definitely a threat. Still going. That is just brilliant. A goal for Luco. A goal for the fans. A goal for the cause. Here's Mackay. Barry Mackay. Kemp looking to make it happen here. He might just do that. Ryan Jack! Deflected up down and in!
And Gulacsi was missing it. There's Lundstrom! John Lundstrom with the goal! But here's Joe Aribo, a slip from Tutan. Aribo! A bolt from the blue! Joe Aribo!
Hi there, and welcome to everybody watching the live Wednesday Bulletin on the This Is Ibrox network. Today I am joined by Ben. How are you doing today, Ben?
Doing good, yes. Looking forward to another chat about Rangers.
Oh, yeah, aren't we all? And Jock, how are you getting on today, Jock?
Not too bad. Looking forward to it.
Well, that's it. I said I just hope everybody's got the subtitles along the bottom of the screen for tonight's show, because it's a very Northern Ireland based show tonight. But as always, there's loads and loads to discuss. We've got Malik Tillman's interview in the German paper Kicker. He said some interesting things there. We'll get the guy's thoughts and what he said and how important a player Malik Tillman is becoming under Beale. We'll discuss a wee bit about the Dave King and the Club 1872 sort of share issues. I've definitely got the right two people on tonight to talk about Stephen Davis's exclusive RTV interview, where he talks about his injury and coming back and stuff like that. Maybe a wee mention on the Rangers youth development for their £400,000 donation to the youth programme, and we'll maybe talk about a wee bit about the ref for the final of the Viaplay Cup, and maybe we look ahead to Livingston if we've got time. Everybody watching the Wednesday Bulletin knows that I normally do a wee on this day. It was all kind of Scottish Cup wins against sort of lower league teams. I don't think any of us can remember them, so maybe do something a wee bit different. I think everybody watching kind of knows the day that yesterday was, and on the 14th of February, it was the 11th anniversary of Rangers going into administration. I don't know about you two guys, but I certainly know where I was when I heard that news. I was in a pub in the West End in the primary, and I remember it coming up in Sky Sports News, and I couldn't believe it. But I'll start with you, Ben, first. It's just more of a sort of chance to reflect on I put the journey in air quotes in the last 11 years, and just think back to that day, how horrible it was, and there was certainly we thought we didn't know if we would have a club at the end of the day, but just to we've got to a European final, qualified for the Champions League in that time. I mean, what's some of the highlights of the journey, and how would you reflect upon it?
Yeah, I mean, the highlights you've just said: qualifying again for the Champions League, winning the 55th title, and obviously getting further in Europe than they did the whole time that we were down the divisions, was big. But yeah, just to reflect on it, I mean, the devastation, and it kind of showed me, at a time, I knew Rangers was big in my life, but the thought that there maybe was no Rangers would just showed you just what it means to you. And the amount of false dawns and things like that, and balls and hedges and all sorts of things that we've been through since then. But it shows, when I look at it and reflect on it, it shows how far we've come, and it shows just where we are now, and it's great. It maybe makes you think when things, you're drawing a game at the minute, and everyone's, the world is ending. When you sort of think to what we have been through, things aren't so bad just at the minute.
Yeah, no, that's it exactly. No, I think that's a fair reflection of it all. And Jock, I'll come to you, but before I do that, Teddy Bears here's put it. Love that top, Jock. Reminds me of Gattuso. I totally agree as well. It's a fantastic top. That was the first ever Rangers top that I had.
That's like a Gaza on the back of it.
There you go. It's McCoist in his knees. That's what that top reminds me of.
Yeah.
Jock, I asked the exact same question to you. How do you reflect on the journey and where Rangers have been in the last 11 years?
I'd say it's emotional. I think for everybody, like Ben says, I think it really sort of hammered home how much this club means to you. Whenever it was breaking news and it was making ITN 10 o'clock news, and you were just thinking, what is going on here? The uncertainty for a long period of time, didn't know what was happening. I think a lot of people, I know myself included, put a lot of trust into Craig White when he first came in. He said all the right things, blew smoke up everybody's backside, and then it all came crashing down under his watch. So, it's been emotional, like you say, with highs, with lows, with been every ground in Scotland now. I think our journey back up through the divisions, I think, definitely gave those clubs down there a new lease of life, a bit of more security about them, because we were packing them every stadium down and around there out. Could have sold the tickets 3, 4 times, 5 times over. We were travelling supporters unwavering. And then as Ibrox, no disrespect to the smaller teams, but Ibrox was sitting packed, and their average attendance for those seasons in those divisions was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it just, again, if anything, I think we did being down there, did Scottish football in the lower divisions a bit of a good service until we came up, and then reaching the cup final last year. Definitely, it was something I don't think any other club could have survived what we've survived. I generally don't. I think that's just us as a club, as a fan base. I think nobody survives that.
Yes, it is incredible, isn't it, to look at where we are in the short space of in football terms. 11 years, we won a league title, got to a European final, and got back into the Champions League again, which is just if you told me that away back in when we were playing at that first game against Brecon, I don't think I'd have believed you, but it's nice to be back where we belong. But a wee comment here. There's a name I never thought I would see. Stuart Hay says Seb Fuer was a highlight to get in any team in the world. Definitely not. Never want to mention Seb Fuer again or any of those guys that played in the lower division. I think we've got much better players now. But speaking of much better players now, Ben, I'll come to you on this wee point here. It's been doing the rounds quite a lot in the world of Rangers at the moment. You know that Malik Tillman gave an interview with a German newspaper Kicker. And I never know how to sort of take these things. Are they a bit more honest? Because maybe sometimes the players don't think that this will get picked up in Scotland because they're giving it to a German newspaper. But regardless, he's given us quite an interesting insight. The first point I'd like to come to is on why he joined Rangers. He said, because I'd followed them in the Europa League last season and they got to the final versus Frankfurt. I thought through the chance came to play the Champions League as well. Also, with the Scottish toughness, I could add another component to my game. What have you thought of Malik Tillman and his time at Rangers? And do you think that even since the start of the season that he has added that sort of component to his game with the Scottish toughness, as he said?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's certainly. I think his work rate, which was potentially questionable to start, I think it's improved. I think you see him working back and standing up to physicality a bit more now than you did maybe at the start of the season. Whether that is just that he's enjoying his football a bit more, he's got the freedom under Beale. But I absolutely love him. I love him. He can do no wrong in my eyes at this minute in time. And the fact that I still see some people that aren't sure, I don't understand what they're looking for, because the kid's fantastic. He's absolutely fantastic. His goal return alone this season for a 20-year-old that's come on loan to a country he's never played in is brilliant. And he is getting better week in, week out. In terms of his comments, he has to say certain things. He's still a Bayern player. He has to be professional. He may have aspirations of going back there, and to be honest, if he is getting it in his ear that he has a realistic chance at Bayern, can anyone blame the kid? No. I would absolutely love us to sign him, and if we sign him, if we've got him for 2 years, I'll be surprised because he's so good. He's going places.
Yeah, as Teddy Bears here says, he is scary good, to be honest, and I agree with that. Jock, I'll come to you on the next wee point here that he mentions in the article, and it's talking about his time under Gio, and maybe this question isn't directly related to Tillman, but he says that he feels that the Champions League performances cost Gio his job. He said, in the league, we didn't reach our standard, and I feel that the sporting performance, the manner of the football, it just didn't fit. It was too defensive, and we're expected to score goals at Rangers. It's kind of hard to disagree with what he said there. I don't necessarily know if it was the Champions League that cost Gio his job, but do you think this is an interesting wee sort of insight into the frustrations that the players were clearly feeling underneath Gio, and do you think that other players shared these frustrations as well?
I think it's pretty obvious. You could see it on the park. The way players were sort of getting at each other, the body language was certainly quite glaringly obvious that people weren't happy with how things were going and the way we were playing. It was very repetitive under Gio, the same thing over and over again. But that silly status was at 72 crosses or something in one of the games at Ibrox. It was ridiculous. And like Tillman says there, he's hit the nail on the head, really, hasn't he? The Champions League games were a disaster. On the park, and see the very little chances were created in all the games. Apart from obviously the one that the goal at Ibrox, Arfield scored. It's league game again, the league form again. Let's say we were conceding far too many goals. That we were starting games going down. or we were always scrambling, or we were winning and we were throwing goals away. So saying that we were setting up defensively, I could see that point, but we weren't defensively solid enough at the same time. There was just too many ifs and buts. And I think what people are saying, or the players are saying about the way Beale sets up, whether this is current players, ex-players, or players that have been with Beale down at Aston Villa, they all say the way he analyses the game and sets the teams up and delivers the team talks is just so different to what they're used to, and it's going back to what they were doing under Gerrard. It seemed more structured under Gerrard. There's, people seem to have more idea what they were doing. So, it for me hit the nail on the head with that quote regarding the performances overall, league and Champions League.
Yes, totally agree. Darren Knock here says Gio alienated lots of players and it was bound to fail. Yeah, I think there was certainly a lot of frustrations at that time about Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's time towards the end of his Rangers career. But I just thought I'd mention it, seeing as that we've not really had any snippets from any players mentioning anything directly about it. Ben, that kind of brings us on nicely to what Jock was talking about there under Beale. Of course, Tillman has given us a wee quote on Beale and how much he's looking forward, or he looked forward to working with him. I think we know it was no secret that Beale was also looking forward to working with Malik Tillman, seeing as that he mentioned him in every press conference until the first game. But he says, among other things, he plays attacking football. I would say he and his assistant prepare us more for opponents. We have a better fundamental feeling regarding how we approach a game. I just think that's a very interesting thing to say. And do you think that have you seen a bit of an improvement, maybe a change in Tillman's game since he came in, or since Beale has come in?
Yeah, I have. I think he's got more freedom. I think it's less rigid, and I think a big thing is I feel like Gio far too many times was setting us up to stop what the opposition was doing, and it could be your Livingstones, it could be, I can understand that, against better teams or in the Champions League, or even against Celtic. To be fair, you've got they're a decent team, as much as I don't like to say it. You do have to be wary of their threats, but Gio was trying to stop them before he was letting us play. And now I feel like Beale, you can see it with Ryan Kent as well. Beale has taken the reins off and is letting our players have the freedom to express themselves, and that is exactly what a player like Tillman needs. He needs to go, and he needs to enjoy his football. And it at times did not look like he enjoyed the football under Gio.
No, I totally agree. And I'll stick with you in this wee point here. Something Beale has mentioned in his previous press conferences, Ben, he's talked about Malik Tillman being a 6 or an 8. Where do you see him playing? Do you see him playing more a bit further back in that 6 role, or a wee bit further forward in 8? Or do you even think that he could potentially play in there as a 10? I know it's unlikely now that we've got guys like Cantwell and Hadji in the team, but I mean, I think he could play anywhere along that front attacking sort of unit, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I mean, I think he could play anywhere. I think he is better that little bit further forward. I think we now have in like Raskin the players that can sit back that little bit more and dictate the play. And I feel like he is somebody that can, pick a pass through the lines and stuff. And I know you can do that from both areas, but I feel he could play a 10 certainly. But I think that number 8 position is probably where you'll get the best out of him.
Yeah, and Jock, I just got the exact same question to you. Where do you see Malik Tillman's best position and amongst that Rangers squad? And I will add, against, I think it was Kilmarnock, when Beale put him on, I think he put him on as a sort of focal point, as the sort of 9. And I thought he did really, really well, even in that role. I thought he was unlucky not to score a goal. But yeah, that being said, where do you see him fitting into this team?
I think fitting into the team is going to be through the middle. He could play anywhere because he's got that. His game intelligence is ridiculous. He sees channels and he sees through balls coming, and the amount of times he's cut out a through ball where teams tried to push past us or pass through us, he's intercepted the ball. I've lost count many times he's done this during games, particularly the Old Firm game at Ibrox. He'd done it nearly, I think, at least 3 times. Reading the situation, reading what was happening in front of him. So he's got that intelligence for such a young age. You say he played up sort of in the central sort of up front role against Kilmarnock. He has the body, so he's got the upper strength, which is what he came to Scotland to do, was to develop that side of his game. The physical side, so he can do that, no bother. He's got quick feet. He can see passes, and he just does those touches that nobody else in the team has. Just that little bit of quality that we've seen in touches there that's got his goals, or it's created breakaways in terms of attacking and stuff. Anywhere through the middle, but if needs be, I say he could be pushed out wide as well. To be honest, he's just one of those guys that can do anything from the midfield forward. Also, defensive-wise, he does. He puts in the hard yards as well. It's something that's not really picked up on. I think he does come back. He does get stuck in as well, and so he's one of those. I'd probably go with box to box if needs be.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Curry Muncher here has put, I would have Cantwell as an 8, Tillman as a 10, and Raskin as a 6. That is interesting, having Tillman as the 10. I always thought it would be better suited maybe to the 8 role, and I think that's where Beale has been playing them. But something you said there, it was there was a FB Wonder Kids on Twitter. They had this amazing stat, and I loved it, and it was the total duels won of under 21 players in Europe. I don't know if either of you seen this, but it's fantastic.
I did.
Malik Tillman is sitting at number 4 on that list, which is insanely high. He's only beaten by Jude Bellingham is one of the players that's beaten him on that list. Maybe for comparison, the only other player that I kind of recognised off that list was Xavi Simons at 4 places below him, and we certainly got or could potentially get Malik Tillman for a lot less than Xavi Simons, who was heavily linked with us in the summer there. Ben, I'll come to you in the next point here. When he's talking about his future, as we've said, he gives a very sort of professional, media-trained answer as somebody who you would expect, who is a Bayern Munich player at the end of the day. But he says, I just want to play football as much as possible. To me, it's relatively unimportant where that is. I feel comfortable here. In fact, very, very comfortable. I bring my performances, which I think Rangers are really happy with. But I also imagine the same with people at Bayern. So we'll see. What do you think of this? I saw on social media there was a few people a bit worried by saying, he's not directly coming out and saying, I definitely want to play for Rangers. I suppose it's different for all us supporters at the end of the day, because we would play for free if we were good enough. But what do you think about his comments, especially when he says it's relatively unimportant to me where he plays?
Yeah, I mean, he's 20 years old. He's living the dream either way. He's a professional footballer. I think he's done the right thing. I think he's been advised on what to say. He doesn't want to come out straight away and say, I want to come to Rangers, and then Bayern turn around and say, well, you're our player and we still want you. And at the same time, I don't like to see it, but he maybe also be putting out, feelers to other clubs to say, listen, I'm playing well, I'm available. I hope not. I hope it is between ourselves and Bayern. And I hope if Bayern want him, I can't see if Bayern want him that he'd be in the position where he'd be going into their team next season. So I would hope a sort of compromise situation would be send him on loan to us again for another season. But he's given the answer that he has to give. He's being respectful to us. He's saying he's enjoying it, but he's keeping his options open, which is fair enough.
Yeah, that's it. I think that's the thing that we all need to remember. At the end of the day, he is still a Bayern player. We'll maybe get into the deal in the next question, but to Ben's point there, I was having a wee look at that the team that played PSG last night, and there was only a couple of players there. A very strong team, as you would expect, but there was a few players on the bench I didn't realise, so I chucked it into the group. And the guys seem to say Ibrahimovic and is it Stanisic were the two sort of standouts on that bench. They're both younger than Tillman, and I think they're maybe Bayern see them as a wee bit further ahead in their career. So I'm hoping that's a bit of a positive. But same question to you, Jock. I mean, at this point, I think it's a no-brainer whether or not we sign Malik Tillman. But we've got to do it. But are you encouraged by what he's saying there, or do you just think, similar to Ben, it's just standard professional answer that it's just what he's got to say.
Yeah, it's a safe answer, isn't it? Like you say, he's been respectful to both parties, which he has to be really at this stage, because the last thing he wants is to sort of get the fan base on his back if he says something out of turn. Plus the fact that it's an interview in a German newspaper. You don't know the context of questions, and you don't really know the translation either, unless you speak fluent German. So, like you say, it depends on what way the deal's structured. If the deal could be in place and it's all rubber stamped, it's just on the player to say yes, okay, I'm happy for the deal to go through. You could get to the end of the season, and like you say, other offers could come in, and he might. It's up to him, really. I think at the end of the day, if the two clubs have agreed to the loan deal with a future fee in place, it comes down to the player. So ideally, we make him feel his home as best we can, and Beale and Ross Wilson work their magic and just make him feel as comfortable. We as a fan base just show him how much we love him, and just try and get him to see that Rangers maybe for the next 2 years is the best place to be playing your football, because you're going to get every single Rangers fan out their seat and backing you 100%.
Yeah, that's the thing exactly. It's if I don't, like I said, I'm a bit worried about the deal itself, because it's not been really clear as to how it is. I'm just going on based on what Rangers said when they initially signed them, saying that we've got an exclusive option to buy him. As always, it's never straightforward in the wonderful world of Rangers, and given that Beale's come out and said, that if they decide to take him, that they will take him, which I thought at the time was maybe a bit harsh, but maybe it's the wee ruthless side that we maybe need to see from Beale. Look, I'm maybe going to stray off the agenda a wee bit here as I see the fear in the two U's faces here. But Curry Muncher made a good point that I did have, but I took it out because I didn't know if we'd have enough time to talk about it. But seeing as people want to talk about it, we'll talk about it. The one thing that needs to be addressed is Tav's fitness, drop in form, and a real lack of effort this season. Performances have dropped off a cliff, and probably our weakest player of the last season and a half. Ben, I know there's not really been any prep on this, but I kind of like questions like this. Right. Genuinely, I have been a bit frustrated with Tav this season. I don't have the stats off the top of my head. I think at this point, he's maybe scored one goal in the league than what he had last year, which maybe surprised me. But I know his assists are way, way, way down. And I agree with what Curry said there. I don't think he's been putting in sort of Rangers level performances at times. I mean, he's done okay, but where do you sit on this? Do you think is he just in the team because he's the captain at the moment, or do you think there's a bit more to it?
Well, I can only judge him by his own levels, and he's not been at his own levels. There's no doubt about that. I don't think I would agree with lack of effort. I don't think he's not trying. I don't think any player out there is going out not trying. But his consistency level and his performance has not been up to his own standards or to what we expect from our captain, and what we've grown to expect from him. I'm surprised by that, what you said about his goals, because I thought it'd been way, way off.
Yeah.
But I think I'm surprised, given that Devine had come in and had done really well playing out of position. I'm surprised he hasn't been given any more of an opportunity. I was surprised he wasn't played in the cup game. And I think Tav needs competition, and right now it's quite evident that he doesn't have any. And I suppose his performances aren't going to go up unless there's somebody pushing him. He should be pushing himself, obviously, but he needs somebody. He had Nathan Patterson there, who you could see really was going to push him. Devine hasn't been given the chance. I don't know right now if he's quite ready to be starting week in, week out. But I think, given that Tav's not been at his own level or what we would want from him, I think maybe Devine does deserve a chance.
Yeah, I'm in that same sort of camp. Jock, I'll ask you the same question. Curry Muncher here says, Kyle, take away the dead balls and the penalties, and Tav sitting 2 goals and 3 assists. That maybe changes the perspective of things a wee bit, because I certainly remember, in the Europa League, sliding in at the back post quite a few times. But something that does my head in at games is Tav constantly taking the free kicks that we've got in goal, because I couldn't tell you the last time that he actually scored from one. But where do you sit on it? Do you think that it's just? I agree with Ben. It's not a lack of effort, but from the start of the season, I mean, it's impossible to say, but I think he's been carrying a wee niggle or something. But to the point Ben's made as well, that Divine's maybe not giving him enough of a challenge. Where do you sit on it all, and do you think we should maybe be looking at a new right back in the summer?
Yeah, I think so. It's like everything Ben said there, spot on. Any player at Rangers needs somebody chasing the shirt behind them. And say Patterson was that level of quality that was going to be pushing him for the shirt, even though he's captain. And any time Tav did drop out, which is very rarely, because he's been that consistent in terms of injuries and performances over the last 3, 4, 5 seasons with his stats, everything seems to be sort of slowing down. Now, whether that is because he's been carrying that niggle and he's not shaking it off, or it's maybe one that he's maybe, we just don't know. We were told he wasn't injured for a while. We were told that wasn't the case. Like you say, it's hard. It's difficult to know why the assists and goals aren't there, because it's been consistent. He's been consistently consistent at getting goals and putting balls in the box for somebody to score. I agree with you on the free kick level. It's not been good enough, but he's a captain, so captains has to say really. Borna was really the only other one that was hitting free kicks at that point, but then we weren't really getting a lot of free kicks in and around the box anyway for a long time. So I don't know with Tav. I think really the season needs to end. Tav can just reset and just go to next season. Because it's just not been there this season at all, and to go from such the highs of the goals he was scoring against Dortmund and the semi-final at Ibrox, those moments are just, he'll never ever top that. So maybe we were setting the bar too high, and maybe this is the gradual decline at Tav now, because Tav's been with us for how long now, and every division he was in, or the 2 divisions he was there with us, every season's been frightening. So maybe this is the slow decline of Tav's, high stats and high goal scoring record, if it's just going to be penalties. So a new right back, I think, is something we need to be looking at, purely for competition.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of interesting opinions on this. Darren Knock here says Divine was excellent when he covered at left back. Surprised he hasn't played more at right back. It's really hard to disagree with that. I mean, it's terrible to say it, but I think part of the reason why Tav hasn't been dropped is because he is the captain. Is that right or wrong? We're not the manager of Rangers Football Club, so I suppose it's not for us to decide, but we can certainly have an opinion on it. Paul Harper here is even a bit more critical. He says, think Tav should go before his reputation gets tarnished, as he's been a great servant for the club and definitely need a new right back. As I said, this is where Mateusz Sikowski comes back absolutely huge from his stint in Poland and his tearing up the league next year. So, Jock, I'll stick with you on the next point here. It is some news about former chairman Dave King. He's ended his share deal with fan group Club 1872. It was a scheme that was designed to see the Rangers supporters group owning a majority of the club's shares by buying them directly from King through Club 1872. Dave King gave a number of reasons as to why this wasn't working out. Reason number one, he said some supporters prefer to buy their own shares directly. Some supporters would support joint fan ownership, but not within Club 1872. The difficult economic conditions, supporters no longer feel that the club is under threat, and the club's recent campaign against Club 1872 and its officers, which I think point number 5, very interesting. What's your thoughts on this? And I don't know, I don't know if it's a bit of a shame it's come to an end, but it's what's your thoughts on the whole situation? A good idea in principle?
Yeah, good idea in principle. Like I say, the fan ownership model, I think, is what majority of people would obviously want to go down, bar some Saudi prince coming in with 30 billions worth of oil money. You know what I mean? but that's just not the position Rangers is in. So I could see what he's trying to do, but like you say, he's listed off a number of reasons here. But I think a big part of it, obviously, now is the financial climate for everybody, because everybody's going through what everybody's going through at the moment. So people just don't have that money. But Rangers are taking plenty of money from the fans that are putting the money directly to the club in that sense, because they'll pay for their tickets, they'll pay for the merchandise, and they'll pay for their My Dears and everything like that. Maybe fans that have money think that's enough. It's a catch-22 with something like this. You really need to have somebody who's going to take ownership of it and drive it forward, and it just doesn't look as though that's been the case with this.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with what you've said there, Jock. Ben, I ask a similar question to you, sort of. Maybe I don't want to criticise anybody, but it's the optics on it haven't been great between Club 1872 and the club. It's been sort of squabbles, is maybe the way I would describe it, and it's not benefited anybody on either side. But just what's your thoughts on sort of fan ownership as a whole, and do you see that as something that Rangers should be aspiring to one day?
I mean, I like fan ownership in principle. It's just the politics behind making it actually happen and putting it into place is a very, very difficult task, and is certainly one that is way over my head. But yeah, football belongs to the fans. Clubs belong to the fans, and the fans should have a huge say, if not, as you say, be the ownership. But I think it was the right idea. But as you say, those squabbles and things, it just didn't look good, and it will have put people off at times. And it's like, which side do I have to pick? Do I have to pick Club 1872, the club, And it's like, we all support Rangers. We all should be together. Now, I'm not criticizing anyone specifically, because I don't know enough. But it was just that. It was like, do I agree with this? Do I agree with that? Or it was divisive when it was meant to be bringing us together, and I think that's where it kind of fell down.
Yeah, it's dead interesting. I don't know, I like German football quite a lot, and I love the way that it's done over there with the 51% fan ownership, and I think it's a really, really good idea, and I think they really, really get the best out of their football teams, and just I've been to Hamburg, and just that whole experience as a fan was just like nothing that I'd been to before. Just the lead up to the game, I really hope that that's something that can happen at Rangers. I suppose they are trying to do something like that with the addition of new Edmonton House and things like that. But yeah, it's a bit of I think it's pie in the sky stuff maybe with Rangers. But it's really interesting to see. Nicholas here says fan ownership's too many cooks spoil the broth. Which I was maybe expecting people to be a wee bit more behind it. And the Trying Scotsman here says, I believe Rangers are too big to be owned by fans, which is another interesting opinion on it. Correct there. Look, the next point, Jock, I'll come to you. And I promise everybody watching, we absolutely didn't plan this. But let's just say when I found out who I was on with, and then an interview with Stephen Davis dropped yesterday, I was absolutely ecstatic. But in December, Beale revealed that Stephen Davis had suffered a really, really serious knee injury, which is going to keep him out for the rest of the season. I don't know if that's still the case. I know that Beale likes to give updates and his injuries and all his press conferences. I feel especially with Suter and Yilmaz, it's just another 2 weeks, just another 3 weeks or whatever. But he gave RTV an exclusive interview. It was so good just to hear him speaking again, because the guy is the ultimate professional. But I don't know, maybe it's just because of the way that I see him. It's no secret on here that he is my all-time favourite player, Stephen Davis. But it was maybe surprising to hear him saying that he's been struggling with it. And it's been really, really good to have a club the size of Rangers supporting him and his family through this, Jock.
Yeah, because he's the highest cap record British football player, isn't he? Am I right in saying that? So you don't get
119
without being injured and without missing games. So I'd say this is. I can't remember him ever having a serious injury like this in his entire time with Rangers. So I'd imagine this is quite tough for him. But if he's coming out and saying things like that, then I didn't see the interview. I only saw the one he did in the BBC. For over here, and he was positive. positive outlook on everything that was going on with the injury, but he's saying that he was finding it a wee bit tough because he's not seeing progress straight away, but he says it's probably going to take a week or two before he starts seeing real progress with it. But he's out, he's in the pool doing the movement on it and stuff. So I've always known that this type of injury carries 6 to 12 months sort of shelf life, really. So I don't know enough about the ins and outs of it. I just know it's one of these ones that takes a long time. So I'm not sure when his deal was up with. Does his deal run out in the summer, does it? His playing deal, anyway. His playing deal, I'd imagine that they'll keep him on in some capacity as a coach, or if not, it'll be maybe a scout or something, because with his tie to over here, he obviously will be able to send them over and get them scouting players over here, because traditionally we've always taken players from over here back to Glasgow anyway. So I'd be sad to see him go, because I think he's been here so long and he's too big a character, and like you say, he's that model professional that I don't want him to go anywhere else. Just want to stay at Rangers.
Yeah, I'm the exact same. And Ben, it was really, really interesting in that interview. There was a couple of wee things. He says there's still good things to come until the end of the season, and he doesn't see this as a beginning of the end chapter in his time at Rangers. So number one is, what do you think? Not refreshing, but I suppose it's, the pedestal we all put Stephen Davis up on. It's nice to hear him say that he's, it's not a scoosh for him to sit by the sideline and say this, that he's, he's like the rest of us. He's got his struggles and finds it difficult. But that and where do you see him at the end of the? Would you offer him, take your Northern Ireland and your Rangers hat off for 1 second? I know that's difficult to do. But
impossible.
There we go. Then. But would you offer him another deal at the club? Would you like to see him staying around, maybe in a different capacity?
I can see him managing Rangers one day. I really can. But for the immediate, I would have given him another contract prior to the injury. It will depend on how he comes back. But knowing how professional he has been his entire career, he will be given everything to his rehab. He leads his life in a really good way as well. Which is probably testament to the fact that this is his first major injury at 38. And it will stand him in good stead. And I think when Michael Beale came in, when he was speaking about him, and he hadn't played much under Gio, no. But when Michael Beale kept speaking about him and really, really talking him up and saying how important he still can be, I would imagine that he taking the injury away would have been looking him to play a big part, certainly till the end of the season. And I have no doubt that Stephen Davis obviously doesn't have the legs maybe that he used to have, but he has the brain to pick passes that there's no other player in our team can do that. With maybe Tillman might be the only one that comes close. But I believe that although the legs aren't there, the brain will still be there. He still scans that field. He still sees things. He basically runs every game that he plays in. And when I look at when he came on in the semi-final last season in the Scottish Cup, he really controlled the game for us. I feel like even when he came on in the Europa League final, he really made a massive difference. He controlled the tempo of it, and he still does. I mean, I watched him not long ago playing against Italy at 38 for Northern Ireland, and I mean, Verratti's on the field and real good midfielders. And Stephen Davis ran the game. It's just a shame the other 10 were useless, but that's another thing. But yeah, I believe that he still has a role to play as a player, but that the club will have plans for him. My only question is I believe his family still live down in South England, so it's whether he would want to continue in a coaching capacity. But he loves the club, and he in his interview he still has the hunger. So I'd imagine he will still want to be around.
Yeah, Ben, I'll stick with you in this. This is the only point I will ever talk about international football on this show, because I have slight leanings towards Northern Ireland. Do you see him after this when he comes back from his injury? Surely he's got to keep playing for Northern Ireland, because I can't see anybody that displaces him in that team.
Yeah, no, he'll still play. There's no doubt about that. And that was one of the things he talked about he did an interview with the BBC over here. And one of the things he said that is getting him through this rehab and all is the thought of putting on the Northern Ireland shirt and the Rangers shirt again. And to be honest with you, I could see Stephen Davis playing for Northern Ireland even if he doesn't have a club in a year's time or whatever. I genuinely could. I think he'll retire playing for Northern Ireland. He lives to do it. And he couldn't have represented us better for years and years. I remember his debut in 2005. I mean, to still be playing it's incredible.
Yeah, it's absolutely outstanding, and as everybody said here, he's the ultimate professional, and that's why I love him so much. Is that, and he just happens to be a very, very good football player as well. Jocko, I'll come to you in the next wee point here. It's a quick one. It's just that the Rangers RFC Youth Development had a £400,000 donation to the youth programme, which is an incredible sum of money. All that's raised through sort of bricks, the halftime draw, the Rangers Lotto and all that sort of stuff. Just a wee quick shout out for our very, very own Scott Cameron, who's involved in all that sort of side of things. You can find him on Twitter at Cami26_2. And he said to mention that you can find him in the West Enclosure before every game where you can buy your halftime draw. And he said to definitely make sure that everybody knows that he sold the winning ticket at the last home game. So if you're not involved in that, maybe drop Scott a wee message on Twitter if that's something you're interested in. But Jock, just it's another fantastic sum of money that's donated, and I think it was up to 10 million since, is it 2003, 2004, something like that, I read.
Yep.
which is incredible, and it just keeps the youth development going, and it brings guys like your Lowrys and your Kings and your Devines into the team.
That's it. It's big sum of money that you would expect to come from a player sale, or the team, somebody that's come like McCann, going out the door for sort of similar money. So any donation that's coming in the size of that's hundreds of thousands is going to benefit the Rangers Youth Academy going forward, and help produce players of McCann. I mean, we brought him in from Man United, but he was in there for a couple of years. Lowry, young guys like Lovelace, those other young guys that are coming through. It's what we need in this Rangers team is young Rangers players. That's what we're looking for. So long may it continue. Yeah,
Shona McLean here's got a wee point. They really should do something like a crossbar challenge or something outside Edmiston House when it's finished, and put the money for that to the youth team. That would be hilarious, because oh my god, the amount of people making an absolute arse of themselves outside Ibrox. I think Craig and I would certainly be at the front of the list for that. Ben, I'll come to you in the next wee point here. Maybe just to highlight it, there's been a lot made of referees, and a certain pundit with leanings that are not towards Rangers we couldn't take a blowtorch to his neck with some of the comments he's been hitting out with the last week. But Nick Walsh has been appointed the man in charge of the Viaplay Cup final for the Old Firm game. What do you make of this? Is it because it was headlines? Are you just happy that VAR may be involved as well against Celtic? Or what's your thoughts on Walsh being announced as there? Because it's funny, because I've seen both sides go. I've seen Celtic supporters say on Rangers leaning Nick Walsh, and I've seen Rangers supporters going, is he not a Celtic supporter?
Yeah, I think he's one of the better of a very, very bad bunch, if I'm honest. I'm just glad it's not Willie Collum, is all I can say. It shouldn't come down to the referee, but considering the last time we played them in a League Cup final, they won by an offside goal. It inevitably does. But I'm more worried about the 11 players we have on the pitch, and hopefully, we can do the job. They seem to enjoy a meltdown of a referee so much, and yeah, as for that pundit, well, the less said, the better.
Yeah, that's it. It was just a wee point I thought I'd bring up, seeing as it was quite mentioned quite a lot on social media today. Look, before we go, let's just go ahead. I don't think there's a pod coming back until the post-match against Livy. So, Jock, I'll come to you. What's your thoughts on the game against Livingston? We know it's a bit of an unusual away 3 p.m. kickoff. away from home on the Saturday. I think we were talking before it. We were a bit surprised maybe it wasn't selected for TV. As you're right, I seem to remember every single game against Livingston has been shown on the television. But how do you think Rangers will prepare for this one? Do you think it'll be a similar team to what we saw against Partick Thistle, or do you think Beale will bring the changes in?
I think he'll bring the changes in. I think we'll probably see the sort of similar lineup that we had at Tynecastle, because I hope Lundstrom's back for that. I don't know if they want to risk certain players on that pitch. As we all know, it's a plastic guff. So
yeah.
I'd say there'll be a few changes. And let's say the odd time at 3 o'clock on a Saturday for an away game. I really should be on sort of a Sunday thing, especially if our team in Glasgow's playing at home against Aberdeen. So I do imagine there'll be changes made, but it should be a good game to watch, because hopefully we get a good number of goals against them, because they're not in good form at the moment.
That's it. And I'll stick with you, Jock. I'm assuming that you don't think James Sands will be still sitting in it at centre half. Where do you think some of those changes will be, and do you think that we will see Raskin maybe starting again?
Raskin, I'm not too sure. Sands obviously will be out. I'll probably be back to the two Goldson and Davies. Midfield wise, I say if I'll think about it now, Lundstrom's maybe coming back from injury, might not risk Lundstrom on the pitch, so Raskin might start actually. When I think about it, up front, I'd imagine it'll be Morelos up front again, and then I'd say Kent and Cantwell, and then Tillman in there as well. I don't see left back and right back changing it either.
Yeah, I know. After all that, knowing us and being on this pod, that'll be the game that after we've talked about Tav, that the Vine will come in for him, won't it? But Ben, I asked the exact same question to you. How are you expecting Rangers to line up against Livingston? And can you see a similar sort of team? Do you think Čolak will start again, or do you think he will go back to Alfredo Morelos?
No, I have to say I agree with Jock. I think Morelos definitely comes in. He's been in good form in the league. I wasn't overly impressed with Čolak, although he's coming back from injury and hasn't played a lot. I think the defence picks itself. McGregor in goal. And I think Raskin will play, partly because Lundstrom with the big game next week. I don't think you risk him if he even is fit. I'm not sure. And then the midfield again would be the same for me, with Cantwell, with Ryan Kent and Tillman.
Perfect. That's it. My next question was going to be: can you see Hadji starting again? But do you think we'll maybe see Hadji being introduced into the squad a wee bit more? Like I personally thought that he was not that great, and he looked. We know he's a bit slow, but I just thought he looked massively off it. And it's a difficult one. How do we get a guy in he needs minutes, but he's not good enough to get those minutes at the moment?
Yeah, I think he's going to have to. I think for the rest of this season, Hadji is just about getting him minutes here and there, and maybe starting, the less important games as they come towards the end of the season, which unfortunately they will when the league is gone, which I think it is. He might start in certain games like that, but no, I don't think he's in a position certainly to be playing now. But I won't be judging him at all until basically the start of next season. You'd like to see little bits of improvement. But he's had a year out without kicking a ball, and he's gonna struggle for a little while.
Yeah, that's it. And Jock, just before I get a score prediction off you, Curry Muncher here, he's given his team to us. The name there that was very, very I thought was missing massively at the weekend was Sakala. Do you think he'll come back in?
I don't know. Possibly, because we're looking to break the lines and we're looking to go in behind them. So pace of Kent and Sakala driving in behind for the through balls certainly would help with that. I don't think Sakala featured against Partick Thistle at all. So yeah, if he's not featured, then I'd say probably he'll definitely get minutes at some point if he's not on the pitch at the start.
Mm-hmm. And Shona McLean's just absolutely coming at the back post last minute with a really interesting point here. And I'd be dead keen to get your guys' thoughts on it. Ben, I'll start with you. Ruthven Fit is ahead of Cholak. What do you think about that?
Well, firstly, what is Ruth Fit? What does that mean? But he is. He's a better footballer. He gives you more to the team than Cholak does. There's no doubt. I mean, Cholak was bought, in my opinion, to be our third striker, so that fits. Mm-hmm. So I agree with that.
Yeah, and Jock, what do you think of that as well?
Yeah, I think I'd agree. Ruth's just a different entity from Cholak and Alfie. He's more intelligent. We've seen that the 55 season where he was scoring all types of different goals because his movement was ridiculous, and he had a good relationship with the midfield, where he was getting these slip balls in through the side channels, just sort of maybe 10-15 yards in from the touchline that were allowing him to come in. And he has something special in him as well. He can just pull something out his backside. He's one of them boys, so I would agree with that.
Yeah, I actually thought his cameo against Partick, I thought he was really, really good when he came in. I was
unlucky.
Yeah, I was surprised to see him sort of starting out. I was out in the right, and then he was out in the left, and then he was through the middle, and I think that's interesting. I hate it because we all know what his injury record's like. We followed it, when he was at Anderlecht and when he was at Leeds as well to an extent. And I think even when he was at Oxford, he had a couple of bad injuries early on in his career. But it's because he's so good. But still, if we can keep him fit, I know a lot of people disagree with me, but I would be hanging on to him as long as we can. Trying Scotsman here, can't not mention this comment. Son of the Moth will definitely start. Totally agree with that. But Ben, just before we go, I'll just get a wee score prediction off you against Livingston.
3-1.
Oh, and would you trouble us with some scorers?
I'll go Morelos, Kent, and Raskin.
Yes, that's exactly who I was going to say to get a wee goal. Jock, and can you just do the same? Just give us a wee score prediction and who you think the scorers will be.
Ben stole my prediction, so I'm going to go 4-0 again. I'll go Alfie. I think Cantwell will get his debut goal. I don't see Rashkin. Probably Tav. I'd say Tav will get a penalty. Say Alfie double, Tav penalty, and Cantwell.
There we go. So you're predicting that Tav will equal his goal scoring record from last season with about 9 or 10 games to go in the league. that
yep.
Certainly an interesting one given how the discussion on him earlier on.
Yep.
Aldo here says Levy will be tough, but hopefully 3 points. And Zakala, we need him in the starting lineup. Caroline says 3-1 with Cantwell. And Curry Muncher says 2-0 going on 6-0. Look, just want to say thanks to my guest tonight. Thanks, Jock. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Cheers, thank you. Loved it.
And same to you, Ben. Absolute pleasure talking to you about Rangers as always.
Yeah, brilliant. Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And just to everybody watching, listening, thanks as always. Thanks for the comments tonight. That was a really, really good one. Really enjoyed interacting with you all. And there was a wee couple of curveballs chucked in there. So thank you. Just remember, give us a like and subscribe on all the usual channels, platforms, if you've not already. The next podcast, I'm sure, I'm not sure who's hosting it. It might be Ross, actually. So that's one for everybody there. Who knows? I hear he's been growing his locks out to see if he can get them the same as Cantwell. So we'll see what he's doing on that one.
Me too.
Yeah, you got a while to go and a full trip to Turkey for that one, Ben. But just thanks to everybody for watching, and we will see you soon.